Good morning. This is Kenneth and Heather with the Advancing Equity Coalition, here to give you a quick recap on what went down last night during the Minneapolis School Board meeting, the last one of 2021. And we have Heather back. Heather, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks for asking.
It's good to have you back. Bailey did great standing in for you, but it's good to have my OG partner in crime back on this. With that, do you want to give us a quick rundown of last night's board meeting?
So last night the school board saw a presentation by the district really talking about the metrics, so how they'll measure and the conditions, what they'll need in order to fulfill the 5 year strategic plan that the board has set. So the board asked some questions about that presentation. Then they spent a little bit of time really talking about the reworking or the refining of their mission, vision, commitments, and values around the strategic plan. There was a pretty quick conversation about board leadership roles, like who's going to chair what committee, who's going to stay and that voting will all happen in January, but there was just some kind of like some commitments or some expressing of desires for people to be in certain roles. And then we ended the night with a conversation about the student representative and some changes that we'll be seeing to that role. So all in all, a pretty quiet meeting.
Yeah, I'd say so. And so I think for me, I want to share my slide of the night. I think the slide of the night really goes back to that original presentation that you're talking about, that the board received from the district around their measurements for if this strategic plan is going to be successful or not. And this is my slide of the night. It shows one of several metrics and performance indicators that they'll be looking at to see, are they investing in the right things? Are they spending the time on the right things? Are we moving towards in the direction that we want to move? And here we see, one of actually the first, you can see 1.1 here. The first metric of success they're going to be looking at is the percent of second through eighth grade students as proficient by fall of the 2026-2027 school year. And if you go, you can see that, they're looking at 63% of our students being proficient by the end of that year, which would be a 15% gain. And then 49% of our students of color being able to read at grade level, which would be a 22% gain in 5 years. And I don't know, I feel torn and frustrated, and I think Heather, you do as well, about this goal and this number, because in 5 years, we're hoping that we're going to say success is less than half of our students of color reading at grade level. Like 22%, a 22% gain is a lot, especially for this district and where this district has been. And that almost doubles where we are today. And at the same time, I can't help but feel pretty disappointed that what we're hoping for, the way we're going to cheer, that still less than half of our students of color are going to be reading at grade level. And so, Heather, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think, I feel really complicated about it. I feel like sometimes we set these goals that are beautiful and make us feel really comfortable, but we really have no real plan for getting there. And so a meaningless goal without a plan behind it, right? And yet I don't know that what I saw last night was a plan to even get us all the way to this. I feel like this feels more realistic to me. And yet I think about, right, we talked about this. Every percentage point is not just a percentage point, it's a human. It's someone's baby, it's someone's child, it's someone who has hopes and dreams and wants to have a complete and full life. And so I don't know. I mean, if I were a school board member right now, I would be sitting back and thinking, is this something that is this the reason I signed up for this low paying, high stress, very public role? Is this number make my pain and my time for commitment worth it for me? I don't know if I feel like that's a yes.
Yeah. And to be fair, one of the next slides would share, if I pulled it up right now, that they're hoping that by the middle of the year of the 2026-2027 school year, you would see about 60% students of color reading at grade level. And so they're saying that, they think that they can make big gains in the middle of the school year. But I still, it's hard. It's hard for me to swallow this pill to think at the beginning of, in 5 years, we're striving for a 50-50 chance of whether a majority of our students are reading at grade level. And like that feels like a really, really hard pill for me to swallow. So, um, and that's not even my do better moment. So,
Well,
let's get in. Go
and
ahead.
it's real that a student who is 3 years behind needs to make more than a year's worth of growth each year in order to get close to those numbers. So I think looking at the amount of work that going to take, I think that's very, I think I can see that perspective as well. I feel complicated about it. I feel complicated about it.
What I would also say though is in 5 years, like a good amount of those students aren't going to fall in that age range anymore, like that second
That's
through
true.
eighth grade
That's
age,
true.
right? Like our fourth through eighth graders are going to, some of them will be graduated, but like graduated from MPS, right? And so it doesn't sit well with me. But anyways, we've talked a good amount about that slide and kind of the implications of it. Let's go into our most valuable moment and do better moments. So I think I'm first. I'll go first for my most valuable moment. And like Heather hinted before, my most valuable moment is going to be at the very end of the meeting, actually, when the superintendent and student rep, Deborah Meskel, talked a little bit about the new structure for the student rep position. This has been 7 years. This is our seventh student rep now. And this is our first real change, like big change to this role. And so starting next year, we'll actually have two student reps, one from the north half of the city, one from the south half of the city. And the goal is to really, one, expand the capacity of the student rep so that, I think student rep Deborah Meskel sat on a lot of committees, did a lot of work. I don't know how much class she got to go to this year. So the hope is that we'll actually have two student reps who will be able to switch off on what board meetings they're available for to participate in the conversations, and also split what committees and work groups they will be a part of to be able to actually adequately like provide student voice, student perspective. Only one board member or one student rep will be able to sit on the dais during the board meeting, and I'm not sure if they'll both be able to talk or not. I'm not quite sure how that will work, but I think it's a good step and an important evolution, and hopefully one day we see students being able to vote. I think that's a worthy goal to be shooting for. So, anyways, that is my most valuable moment. What about yours, Heather?
Mine really came more toward the end of the meeting when the school board talked a lot about their mission, their vision, their commitments, and their values. And we had talked really in detail about this word well-rounded, and there was concern about the fact that well-rounded wasn't meaningful, that it wasn't translatable, and the board changed the word from well-rounded to holistic. Now, I would prefer a stronger word. I would prefer the word excellent or right, but I do think the fact that the board changed this and that they specifically named the students that they are failing in a commitment in a slightly different spot, right? But that was to me, I felt like community was heard. And so to see them make those shifts and talk about that, that was my most valuable moment of the night.
Yeah, I thought it was good to feel like we got a chance to really see what the board is committing to, and now it is something that we can publicly hold them accountable to, which is ultimately what we've always really wanted to see. And so I think there's probably some more conversations to be had about the exact language and what we want that commitment to look like. We'll see, but at least we saw some of that feedback be taken in. So do you want to actually start with your do better moment?
I will. So my do better moment also comes down to some of the board conversation. So, last night, I sometimes find it difficult to follow the line of thinking or to figure out what it is that a board member is actually asking. And last night was no exception. I thought that there were several board members that talked at great length, but when I listened to what they were asking for or what they were trying to affirm, I couldn't follow the through line. And so I think my encouragement would just be to board members to really think about like what does the public need to know? And I know we know that board members get private time with Superintendent Graff, that they have access to the cabinet, they are allowed to speak to leadership. Those moments are for those unclear questions. I would love it to see board members really think a little bit more about the fact that a public is listening and we are giving our time and energy and trying to understand what matters to them, especially for school board members who are up for reelection coming soon, right? I want to know what matters to them and I want to be able to follow that clearly. And so my do better moment is just for some times when I can't follow that through line well.
Yeah. I think that segues nicely into my do better moment. I think my do better moment is not only like trying to decipher what they're talking about at times, but also like what are you focusing on? Like what is your priority? I thought, it stood out to me immediately when I started to see those metrics and I saw those numbers come out that the board is saying like this is, or that the district is saying that this is what we think success should look like in 5 years. I thought, why isn't the board questioning this more? Like there was only one question from Director Cerrillo about, why isn't the number higher? Why don't we want to have 90% of our students reading at grade level? Why don't we want to have, zero disparity when we look at suspensions? And I think there's like I think it's the responsibility of the board to push this school board or to push the school district to say like, what can we really do? Like let's put a real commitment out there. Let's commit that after 5 years, we can have more than half of our students of color reading at grade level. Like let's commit to more than a 3% gain in new hires of people of color in the next 5 years. Like that can't be what we're striving for and saying is success. Success has to be a complete dismantle of this system. But Director Inns asked a question around, we have a teachers union that has the same values as the district, and like why does it have to be so ugly between the two of them? Why can't we get any movement on the things that we care about if we all have the same goals? And I think the answer is because we're all also really committed to racism. I think we're really committed to racism. I think we're really committed to saying we don't think students of color can learn. And we've bought into these ideas around like what is possible for students of color. We
That's
think
right.
that students of color can it's just a reality that students of color have to be suspended more often than our white students in Minneapolis public schools. Like that's just the reality. Instead of right now, we have our students of color getting suspended at almost 6 times the rate of white students. The goal in the next 5 years is to cut that to above 2, to be around 2.6 or something like that. What's heartbreaking to me is that success is going to be if our students of color are only getting kicked out of the classroom 2 times as often, twice as often as our white students.
And
Like
yet we still
that's
follow.
heartbreaking to me. And like the fact that they didn't ask a question about that they didn't want to have a conversation, that they
Yeah.
didn't want to encourage the board or the district to go further than that is heartbreaking to me. And then you ask, then people wonder, why are all these parents of color or all these Black parents mad at the school board meeting coming up and yelling at the board and the superintendent? This is why. And so I think, that was really, really heartbreaking to me, really disappointing for me. And so I hope that the board takes the opportunity in the next month before they vote on these metrics to really question and push the superintendent. What do you need in order to see these numbers, to have more ambitious metrics than what it is? I understand this is what feels realistic, but our community cannot survive realistic when thinking about this with a white supremacist culture. Like we need to dismantle this.
Yeah.
So That is my do better moment. um, but yeah, so we are probably going to talk a little bit more about this in our debrief video. So if you want to check it out, um, feel free to head over there. But Heather, like I said before, it was good to have you back for our final video of 2021, or final recap of 2021. And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.